Creating the new corridor opening. So anyone that's been following my channel will know that in the loft area there is an opening, but it's only about 5 foot tall, about 1.5 meters high, and I've cracked my head on it so many times going through from one side of the loft to the other. So the time had come. I'd already worked out that I needed to create a proper opening for passageway through from the stairs into the upstairs areas, which will be the bedrooms and the showroom. And it was a question of then taking out the cob in between the beams and then sorting out the beams in preparation for the new opening. It won't be a doorway as such, it will just be an opening. There'll be enough doors in and around this area. I don't need an additional one here. And because of the way the A-frame works, it was necessary to leave on an angle, so you will have enough head height, but at one side it's going to be tapered, but it shouldn't pose any problems at all. So here I am cutting through the cob now. In between each beam, each of the beams, you have sections of lath, quite thick sections of lath or batten, which help to hold the cob in place, or the torchis, the French call it torchis. And the beams themselves are slightly indulated. Is that right? Is that a word? There's a slight recess in the centres of the beams, so that it holds the lath, and you can't push. You couldn't just push the section out. So what I had to do there was literally cutting off the ends of the lath either side of the beam, ready so that I could remove the cob. Now the cob I can reuse, or do what I would do is I would take the lath away from the cob, bash it back down into sort of a powdery form. It's a mixture of soil or subsoil really, and straw, and then I can remix that, get it as a wet mix, and then start to reapply it in the areas that I still need cob to be put in. So it's an amazing material. It's very much eco-friendly. It's all from the land. It's got incredible insulating qualities, both heat retention and also sound insulation as well. So it's a terrific product, natural product, and I should be reusing it where I need to. There's the sections of this central A-frame where the cob has been knocked out or lost for whatever reason, or drilled through to put cables in and stuff. So it'd be quite nice to refill that. And then the beams will obviously get sanded down and treated. Although I have said in one of the other videos, it's amazing how there's practically no woodworm attack at all in this loft area, other than some of the rafters where the roof had sort of semi-collapsed, and obviously then you've got lots of water coming in, rainwater and stuff coming in, and that's allowed insects to get into the rafters. The actual A-frame itself up in the loft area is 99% free, I would say, of any infestation. So it's like the wood as it was put in back in the day, back in the 1800s. It's amazing, really is amazing. So the chopping out the sections, I haven't done any structural calculations on this as such. That's not my game. But I've just used logic to think, well, where the original opening was, I don't think that was ever like that. I think somebody's knocked that in, and knocked that out rather, to create that bit of an opening between the two areas. Because when you look at the beam above it, it's actually got a tenon or a mortise notched in, ready to take a tenon in place. The tenon is sort of the additional thin sleeve, which is at the end of these beams, these uprights, and they slot into the mortise, which is like the rectangular hole to hold it in place. And then they fit an oak dowel which is like a big thick wooden pin, which is put in to then stop the beams from moving around too much. So I think at one time you accessed only one part of the loft, and that would have been obviously from the outside, from where the loft hatches at the moment, which is going to be a window. And then somebody had the idea of opening up a bit more um, to gain full access to the loft. So that's my thoughts anyway. So what I'm going to be doing as far as structural integrity is concerned, because I have to cut out a section of beam, is to replace that beam in the existing opening and then just refill that with cob as well. And also I can put a tiny piece, a tiny offcut of crossbar directly above where the top of the opening will be for the corridor. And that's the only thing really I can do. I know as you're looking at it now, you've got this sort of big T-piece sitting across from the diagonal of the A-frame to the great big upright, which is to the right of the picture. Very, very huge, sort of the central post, if you like, for the A-frame. And there's no other way I could do this without taking out the part of the T-beam. So what I've done is I've obviously used a section of that then and pushed it up maybe another 30, 40 centimeters, or about a foot or so that you've got proper head height in that opening. And with that, I'm hoping, I'm assuming that there's not going to be any great movement left anyway, because the uprights are still tied in to the crossbeam, although the crossbeam is going to get cut out. So that shouldn't be able to move. And then the central post, obviously, that's not going to move at all. And the diagonal of the A-frame, the large diagonal beam, that's not going to move either. So it's really just, what do you do? I need to create an opening. People need to be able to walk without ducking their heads. And again, I've been in lots of properties, particularly in Normandy, where they've done loft conversions, and they've kind of, because there's been big beams there, they've just left them in place. And you're trying to walk through an upstairs area, and you're ducking your head, and you're going up steps and you're going down steps, and it's all, to me, it's a bit ridiculous, really. I don't think I could live with that in this house. So I'm strengthening one side of it, and I'm marginally weakening the other side. But the way the A-frame's been attached anyway, and then I think because they've added on an additional section to make the roof is much larger at the rear of the house than it is at the front of the house. I think they've added that, and that's then tied in to the original A of the A-frame. So it's, as far as I'm concerned, it's very well tied together. Right. So if there's any structural engineers out there that want to disagree with me, by all means, we'll know if the house falls down whose fault it is. But I'm fairly confident that that's not going to happen. So it's just about removed all of the cob now, I'd imagine, and then it's a question of doing my first cuts to cut through the oak beams. Move the camera angle slightly, just so you can see this sort of been notched out the centers of these beams, and that allows the carpenters at the time to put in these chunks of lath or batten which would hold, and then they wouldn't be able to get knocked out. So you wouldn't be able to just push, because obviously if you put in a wet material in and then it dries, you're gonna have a tiny bit of shrinkage. So you didn't want to be in a position where once it had shrunk, that panel would essentially fall out. And then these are the beams that I've brought in that were originally downstairs partition wall, and they're going to be used upstairs to create a new cob wall on the right hand side. Anyway, back to creating this opening. So it's a question of using my trusty jacksaw to cut through this chunky beam. Takes a little while, because it's a fair size. But it's, like I say, it's a beam that's practically intact. So it's got no infestation in it. It's as good today as it was probably. It's probably better actually, because I think oak hardens as the years go on. It becomes more and more solid. So it's almost indestructible as a wood. And it's beautiful, and it's got beautiful coloration. It's got beautiful grain to it, and I'm really looking forward to seeing the results once we get the linseed oil onto it. So a little bit of stiffness there with the saw. Obviously, it gets a bit tighter as you go in. And obviously, at my age, I haven't got the strength that I had in my youth. So it takes a wee bit longer to do these things than it did originally. But we always get there in the end. So now you can see that's moving now. So we know that side's been cut through. And then you'll have the tenon, which is on the angle of the cross beam, which is then running into the A of the A-frame. And that is supported through with a dowel, so it won't just lift out like that. I'll have to cut through that diagonal, like I've just cut through the perpendicular there, and with that, then that should free the cross beam. And the good thing is, obviously, you've just cut through it, and it's moving relatively freely, which is suggesting that there's zero movement. Sometimes when you're cutting timbers at under pressure, as you cut them, it sort of closes up because there's movement. Well, here there was absolutely no movement at all. The size of the central upright post is such that it's not going to go anywhere. It's not going to move at all. And then here I am, just gone through the other side now because I'm right-handed. So I put the step ladder on the other side, and I'm cutting through what is the tenon, which is the section that they chop out, and then that slots into the mortise, which is the rectangular hole. So working my way through with the saw. And then with that, it should be able to take that top section off. The top section may well have a dowel put into it, or it may well not. If it's got a dowel, generally they're sort of well wedged in. You can knock them out from time to time, particularly on a property this age, because again, you've got that tiny bit of shrinkage over the years. So what you do is you tap it from the thinner end, so that you're tapping out the thick end from its hold. And that way, then I will have a few spare original dowels, which I'll be able to put in I'll put a beam in downstairs on a previous video, in the centre of the large cross beam, and I'll be able to put an original dowel in place there. Someone very kindly suggested that Amazon actually sell oak dowels, but hopefully on this I shan't need them. But thanks anyway for that. And just about cutting through the tenon now, so you can see there's more and more movement in the cross beam. It's about to give way. It's about to be free after whatever 150 years of being in place like that. It's incredible, really. It's incredible. I say the history of this place. And I recently met the granddaughter of the lady that lived in this house back in the early 20th century. Her grandson lives a few doors away. He's called Jean-Claude, believe it or not. You couldn't get a more French name than that, could you? And his sister sort of rolled up with her husband in 4x4, and she was just asking how I'd seen Jean-Claude recently. She was going to pop in and say hi. I said I hadn't seen him this week. And she said, "Oh, my grandmother used to live there." And I said, "Oh, you must be the sister of Jean-Claude." And she said, "I am." So a bit more gossip for you there. Anyway, tapping off the cross beam. So there wasn't a dowel attached. It's just a question of give it a quick tap with the sledgehammer, and then a bit of brute force, and that's lifted off. And then you can see at the top of that post, you've got the tenon still in place, a little bit dusty. Where it's had 100 years of dust accumulate. And then this is not me giving it a hug. This is me actually trying to get it out. So I used to do this when we were doing fencing back in the UK. trying to get old posts out of the ground, to sort of give them a bit of a wiggle, just to create a bit of a space. And normally then they'll lift out. So there it is. Voila! I have my opening. I can walk freely without banging my head every time I pass from one side of the loft to the other. So it's a nice feeling. It's a nice feeling to have something open like that, and it's a reasonable size. It's not quite 90 centimeters wide, so it's not quite 3 foot, but it's sufficient for people to be able to get through safely. And there you can see, like I said, in the centre of the beams, carpenters have notched out areas to help hold the lath in place. And then you can see there's a section there that will need replacing with cob on the right hand side, and a few sections above. And then the section to the left, I'll infill that with a beam, and then again put the cob in place, or the lath in place, ready for the cob, so that if I know I've taken a little bit of integrity away, and also this thing isn't like everything in this building. Nothing is straight, nothing is plumb. Everything's out by quite a bit. So it is as it is. Anyway, hope you enjoyed this little video, and there'll be more on the upstairs, and lots more work going on there at the moment. Thanks ever so much for all your kind comments and suggestions and words of support, and I'll catch you on the next one.